The Stanford prison experiment was conducted by Philip Zimbardo and his peers at Stanford University to investigate the effects of 24 physically and mentally healthy male college students becoming guards or prisoners. Dr. Zimbardo and his colleagues were interested in finding out whether the brutality reported amongst guards in American prisons was due to the sadistic personalities of the guards, that is, it was dispositional, or it had more to do with the prison environment, that is, the situation that they were in. Now, Zimbardo, before the experiment was carried out, he predicted that the situation made people act the way they do, rather than their own personality. Zimbardo converted a basement of the Stanford University psychology building into a mock prison, and he advertised asking for volunteers to participate in a study to study the psychological effects of prison life. 75 applicants answered the ad, and they were given a diagnostic interview and personality test to eliminate any candidates with previously diagnosed psychological problems, medical disabilities, or any history of crime or drug abuse. Then 24 men were judged to be the most physically and mentally stable, the most mature, and the least involved in any sort of antisocial behavior. They were asked to participate in this experiment, and the participants did not know each other prior to the study, and they were all paid $15 per day to take part in that experiment. Now, participants were randomly assigned to either the role of a prisoner or the role of a guard in a stimulated prison environment. There were 2 reserves and 1 dropped out. So then finally leaving 21 participants, and out of them 10 were prisoners and 11 were guards. So the prisoners were treated like every other criminal. The whole scenario was carried out. They were arrested at their homes without any warning. They were taken to the local police station. They were fingerprinted, photographed, and they were booked. Then they were blindfolded and driven to the psychology department of Stanford University, where the basement was all set up as a prison with barred doors, windows, bare walls, and small cells. One of the key elements present throughout the experiment was deindividuation. Deindividuation is the loss of one's sense of individuality. It occurs when individuals are not seen or paid attention to as particular individuals. The members don't feel like they stand out, and there is a reduction. This actually leads to a reduction in one's sense of responsibility or restraints against doing certain things. When the prisoners arrived at the prison, they were stripped naked. They had all their personal possessions removed, and they were locked away. They were given prison clothes and bedding. They were issued a uniform, and they were only referred to by their number. Like, they were given numbers, and they were only called out with their number. No names were used, so as to emphasize upon the de-individuation process. The use of those ID numbers was a way to make prisoners feel anonymous, and even the prisoner himself was supposed to call himself by that number only. He could not use his name. All the guards were dressed in identical uniforms of khaki, and they carried a whistle around their neck. Guards also wore special sunglasses to make eye contact with prisoners completely impossible. Guards were instructed to do whatever they thought was necessary to maintain law and order in the prison and to command the respect of the prisoners. No physical violence was permitted. Zimbardo observed the behavior of the prisoners and guards as a researcher, obviously, and also he acted as a prison warden. Within a very short time, both guards and prisoners were settling into their new roles, with the guards adopting their roles quickly and much more easily. Within hours of beginning the experiment, some guards began to harass prisoners. At 2:30 a.m., prisoners were awakened from sleep by blasting whistles for the first of many counts. The counts they served as a way to familiarize the prisoners with their numbers. More importantly, they provided a regular occasion for the guards to exercise control over the prisoners. The prisoners soon adopted prison like behavior also. They talked about prison issues a great deal of the time, and they told tales on each other to the guards. They started taking the prison rules very seriously, as though they were there for the prisoners' benefit, and infringement would spell disaster for all of them. Some even began siding with the guards against prisoners who did not obey the rules. As the prisoners became more submissive, the guards became more aggressive and assertive. They demanded even greater obedience from the prisoners. The prisoners were totally dependent on the guards for everything, so they tried to find ways to please the guards, such as telling tales on fellow prisoners if they broke a rule or if they misbehaved. Zimbardo, towards the end, he invited a Catholic priest who had been a prison chaplain to evaluate how realistic their prison situation was. Half of the prisoners introduced themselves to the priest by their number rather than their own name. Zimbardo had initially intended that the experiment should run for 2 weeks, but on the sixth day, it was terminated due to the emotional breakdowns of prisoners and excessive aggression of the guards. According to Zimbardo and his colleagues, the Stanford prison experiment revealed how people will readily conform to the social roles they are expected to play, especially if the roles are as strongly stereotyped as those of the prison guards. There is a stereotypical view that guards are very aggressive in a prison and they humiliate prisoners. So people, when they are exposed to a situation that already has stereotypical views, people adapt to that role very easily and with much more conformity. Because the guards were placed in a position of authority, they began to act in ways they would not usually behave in their normal lives. The prison environment was an important factor in creating the guards' brutal behavior. None of the participants who acted as guards showed sadistic tendencies before the study. We should actually keep in mind that these were very normal male college students with absolutely no violent tendencies who started to behave as such. Therefore, the findings support the situational explanation of behavior rather than the personality based one. So, long story short, good people can be induced, seduced, or initiated into behaving in evil ways. The primary simple lesson the Stanford prison experiment teaches us is that situations matter. So, social situations can have more profound effects on the behavior and mental functioning of individuals, groups, and national leaders, even than we might actually believe would be possible. So we need to guard ourselves against situational factors that can lead us to behave destructively.